Flashing red and blue lights paint streaks across the wet pavement, the hum of the city a constant backdrop to the controlled chaos of the police checkpoint. The night is alive. Horns blaring, engines revving, impatient voices complaining about being stopped. Officer Lucas Reed doesn't look up from his clipboard as another sleek black luxury car rolls to a stop. Just another spoiled rich kid breaking the rules, trying to slip past without consequences. He knocks on the tinted window. It doesn't roll down immediately. Lucas sighs, shifting his weight. Entitlement always takes its time. When the window finally lowers, he expects to see a smug, overindulged socialite. Instead, he finds her. She's poised, her dark eyes sharp under the streetlights, her expression unreadable. She could be a model, a celebrity, but something about the way she holds herself, calm, composed, completely unimpressed, tells him she's more than that. She arches an eyebrow. Problem, officer? Lucas, schools his expression into one of practiced indifference. License and registration. She doesn't hesitate. Doesn't sigh or roll her eyes like most of the elite do when they get pulled over. She simply hands over the documents without breaking eye contact. And that's when he sees the name. Princess Alessandra of Aramovia. His grip tightens slightly on the ID. Royalty. Lucas should step back, should wish her a good night and wave her through like his superior is undoubtedly expecting him to. But he doesn't. Instead, he meets her gaze again, something unspoken crackling in the air between them. She's untouchable, out of his league. A woman who lives in a world so far from his that he should forget this moment ever happened. But something about the way she looks at him, not with entitlement, but with defiance, with challenge, makes forgetting impossible. The palace is a world away from the city streets where Lucas belongs. Everything here is polished, elegant, and controlled. Glistening chandeliers cast golden light over the ballroom, where men in tailored suits and women in designer gowns glide across marble floors, laughing over champagne. Lucas stands at the edge of it all, in uniform, stiff and out of place. His job tonight is simple: security detail. Stay in the shadows, watch for threats, and don't get involved. But then, she appears. Princess Alessandra moves through the crowd like she owns it, which in a way, she does. Dressed in midnight blue silk, diamonds at her throat, she is every inch the royal she was born to be. People step aside as she passes, eyes lingering with admiration or envy. She doesn't notice them. She notices him. Lucas feels her gaze before he even turns his head. When he does, her lips are already curving into something dangerously close to amusement. She lifts her glass in a mock toast. What a coincidence. Lucas keeps his face blank. Not really. Are you following me, Officer Reed? Just doing my job, Your Highness. He makes sure the title sounds more like an obstacle than a privilege. Alessandra tilts her head, studying him. You say that like it bothers you. Lucas exhales slowly, shifting his stance. She's playing with him, testing his patience like she tested his authority at the checkpoint. Before he can answer, a foreign diplomat pulls her attention away, offering a bow and words of flattery. She turns gracefully, slipping back into her world with the ease of someone trained for it. Lucas should look away, should remind himself that she's not his concern. But his eyes find her again. And that's when he sees it, the slight tension in her shoulders, the carefully masked exhaustion in her expression. She isn't as unaffected as she wants the world to believe. A few hours later, when the event is still in full swing, Lucas spots her again, alone. She's on the balcony, away from the glittering crowd, hands resting lightly on the stone railing as she looks out over the city. For a second, Lucas considers walking away, but then she speaks without turning around. If you came to tell me to go back inside, don't bother. Lucas exhales through his nose, stepping forward anyway. Didn't take you for the type to run from a party. She lets out a soft, humorless laugh. I don't. But sometimes, I just need a moment to remember who I am when no one's watching. Lucas leans against the railing beside her, staring at the skyline. And who are you? She's quiet for a beat. Then, softly, still trying to figure that out. For the first time since meeting her, Lucas doesn't have a sharp reply, because for the first time he sees her without the titles, without the arrogance. Just a woman searching for something real. And against all logic, all reason, he wants to be the one who finds it with her. The cafe is quiet, tucked away on a narrow street far from the palace's golden gates. It's the kind of place where no one asks questions, where the coffee is strong and the people mind their own business. Lucas shouldn't be here. He knows that the second he walks in and sees her, Alessandra sitting in the corner, wearing a simple sweater and jeans, looking nothing like a princess. She looks up just as he freezes in the doorway, and then she smiles. "What took you so long?" Lucas exhales, shaking his head as he walks toward her. "You shouldn't be here." She leans back in her chair, unbothered. "Neither should you." That's the problem, isn't it? They both know better. But neither of them are leaving. The conversation starts as a game. Sharp remarks, dry humor, her teasing, him dodging. But somewhere between her second coffee and his first reluctant smirk, something shifts. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asks, stirring the foam on her cappuccino. Lucas frowns. "Leaving what?" She gestures vaguely. "All of it. The duty, the expectations, the person you're supposed to be." He studies her, her fingers delicate around the handle of the cup, her eyes darker than usual. "You want to run away, princess?" She exhales softly, like she's weighing the truth before she speaks. "I want to know what it feels like to choose my own life." Lucas swallows. She's being honest now, and honesty is dangerous, because suddenly, this isn't just some playful encounter. This is something else. And he knows. He should get up. He should walk away. But instead, his hand brushes against hers on the table. And she doesn't move away. Neither of them do. Because they're already standing too close to a line neither of them should cross. The Grand Royal Gala is a spectacle of wealth and power. Chandeliers drip with crystal, the hum of conversation and clinking glasses filling the vast ballroom. Women in gowns that cost more than Lucas's annual salary glide effortlessly across the marble floor, escorted by men with names that matter. Lucas is here for one reason only: security. He should be watching for threats, focusing on his job, but instead his eyes find her. Princess Alessandra. Dressed in a gown the color of midnight, diamonds at her throat, she moves like she belongs to this world, because she does, and he doesn't. From the shadows, he watches as she dances with a man whose status makes him a perfect match. A prince, a diplomat, someone who can give her a future Lucas never could. He tells himself he doesn't care. But then, she looks at him. Across the glittering ballroom, over the heads of noblemen and politicians, her eyes find his. And in that single second, everything unravels. She sees it. The way his jaw tightens, the way his fists clench at his sides. He knows he should look away, but he doesn't. Because he hates seeing her with another man. And worse, she knows it. The night stretches on, but Lucas never lets his guard down. Not when Alessandra laughs at something the prince whispers in her ear. Not when she smiles for the cameras, playing the perfect role. But when the event finally ends, when the guests begin to disperse, she finds him outside. The night air is crisp, the palace gardens lit only by soft golden lamps. Lucas stands near the entrance, his hands in his pockets, trying to shake off whatever the hell this feeling is. Then, her voice. "If you don't want me to marry someone else," she says, stepping toward him, "say something." Lucas turns, the shadows deepening the sharp lines of his face. His pulse is too fast. His thoughts are too loud. He wants to say something, anything, but he can't. Because what would be the point? She's royalty. She belongs to a world he has no place in. So he says nothing. Alessandra watches him for a long moment, waiting, hoping. But when he stays silent, her expression shifts. She nods once, just barely, then turns and walks away. And Lucas watches her go, hating himself more with every step she takes. The rain comes down in sheets, drenching the city in silver. Lucas spots her the second she steps into the alleyway, silk dress clinging to her frame, hair falling loose from its elegant updo. The princess of Aramovia, standing in the shadows, running from the world she was born into. His chest tightens. He shouldn't have followed her, should have let her disappear into the night like she wanted. But he didn't. "What are you doing here?" His voice is rough, the words barely audible over the rain. Alessandra exhales sharply, her breath visible in the cold air. "I could ask you the same thing." Lucas clenches his jaw. "You shouldn't be out here." She lifts her chin, defiance burning through the exhaustion in her eyes. And yet, here I am. Lightning flashes, casting shadows against the brick walls. She looks different like this. Real, raw, unguarded. And maybe that's why Lucas can't stop himself from saying, "Why do you keep running?" She lets out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Because no one ever lets me stop." For a moment, neither of them speak. Then softer. "I'm tired, Lucas." He swallows hard, because for the first time, she isn't throwing daggers at him. She isn't teasing, isn't pushing. She's just tired. And God help him, he wants to fix it. "Tell me to leave," he murmurs. She stares at him, raindrops sliding down her face like unshed tears. But she doesn't say a word. Lucas steps closer. "Tell me to walk away, Alessandra." She looks up at him through wet lashes, her breath shallow. "No." His control snaps. His hands are on her before he can stop himself, pulling her in, crashing his lips against hers. She tastes like rain and recklessness, and she kisses him back like she's drowning. Like he's the only thing keeping her alive. Thunder rolls above them, but neither of them hear it. Because in this moment, nothing else exists. Not her title, not his duty, not the impossible weight of reality. Just this. But when they break apart, gasping, reality does crash in. Alessandra searches his face, her fingers still curled into his shirt. "We can't." Lucas's chest rises and falls, his hands still gripping her waist. "I know." Neither of them move. Neither of them let go. Because it was never supposed to happen. But now that it has, how the hell are they supposed to stop? The headlines hit like gunfire. Royal scandal. Princess Alessandra and a lowly cop. Palace in uproar over secret romance. Duty or desire? The princess's reputation at risk. Lucas barely has time to breathe before his superiors drag him into a meeting room, their faces lined with anger and disbelief. "What the hell were you thinking, Reed?" He doesn't answer. Because what is there to say? That he wasn't thinking? That he was reckless and selfish and let himself believe, for one goddamn second, that she could be his? His boss throws a file onto the table. "You're being transferred, effective immediately." The words should make sense. He should have seen this coming, but all he can think about is her. Meanwhile, the palace is in chaos. Alessandra stands before her father, her mother, a room full of advisors, all of them demanding answers, demanding obedience. "You've humiliated this family. You will never see him again. This ends now." She lifts her chin, refusing to let them see her break. "And if I refuse?" Her father exhales sharply, as if she's nothing but a foolish child. "Then you will lose everything. Everything. The title. The wealth. The legacy she spent her life upholding." But as she stands there, drowning in their words, she realizes Lucas was the only thing that ever felt real. That night she finds him. Lucas is packing up his apartment, his jaw tight as he shoves his life into a duffel bag. He doesn't look up when the door creaks open, but he knows it's her. "Tell me you don't love me," she says, voice shaking. Lucas stops. His fists clench, but he doesn't turn around. "Alessandra, say it." He swallows hard, staring at the floor, his heart a war zone inside his chest. He should lie. Tell her she meant nothing. Let her go. But he can't, because lying to her would be worse than losing her. So instead, he stays silent. And that silence, it destroys them both. The palace feels like a prison. Alessandra stands in front of an ornate mirror, the weight of her future draped over her like the silk gown she's been forced into. The engagement announcement is tomorrow. The world will watch as she takes her place beside a man she doesn't love, a man who was chosen for her, a man who isn't Lucas. Her hands shake as she clutches the edges of the vanity, trying to steady herself. She can't do this. So she does the only thing she can. She runs. Lucas hears the pounding on his door long before he opens it. And when he does, she's there, breathless, desperate, eyes shining with something he doesn't want to name. "Run away with me." Lucas freezes. "What?" She steps inside, close enough that he can smell the faint traces of jasmine on her skin. Close enough to ruin him all over again. "Let's go. Right now. We can disappear." Lucas closes his eyes. God, she has no idea how much he wants that. But when he opens them again, the answer is already written in his expression. "You know we can't." Her lips part. "Why not?" He exhales, stepping back, putting space between them before he does something stupid. "Because you would regret it." She shakes her head violently. "No. The only thing I regret is letting them take you from me." His chest aches, but he forces himself to meet her gaze. "Alessandra, this isn't just about us." "Yes, it is." Her voice cracks, and it nearly breaks him. But he knows the truth. If she runs, she loses everything. Her family, her country, the life she was raised for. And he can't be the reason she throws it all away. So he makes the choice for her. He lifts a hand, gently brushing a stray tear from her cheek, memorizing the way she looks at him, like he's the only thing in the world that matters. And then softly, "Go home, princess." Alessandra blinks, her breath hitching. She knows what this means. He's letting her go. A broken sob escapes her lips as she shakes her head, stepping back, her body trembling with anger, with heartbreak. "You think this is noble?" Her voice is raw. "You think walking away makes this easier?" Lucas clenches his fists, his own pain barely contained. "No, but it means you get to have the life you deserve." Her breath shudders. "And what if the life I want is with you?" Lucas swallows hard, but he doesn't answer. Because saying the truth out loud would destroy them both. So he watches as she turns and walks away. And this time, he lets her. Lucas throws himself into work. The streets are chaos tonight. Sirens wailing, radios crackling with reports of a violent robbery gone wrong. He moves on autopilot, securing perimeters, clearing civilians. Anything to forget her. But nothing works. Because how do you forget the only person who ever made you feel alive? Then, in the middle of the scene, someone calls his name. And when he turns, it's her. Alessandra. Standing there in the flashing red and blue lights, wearing a dress that screams royalty, an engagement ring on her finger that isn't from him. Lucas feels the ground shift beneath him. His pulse is deafening in his ears as she walks closer, her face pale, her eyes searching his. "It's done," she says, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm engaged." Lucas doesn't react, doesn't flinch, because if he does, he'll shatter. So he nods once, cold, professional. "Congratulations, Your Highness." A flicker of pain flashes across her face. She expected anger, maybe even heartbreak, but not this. Not nothing. She steps closer. Too close. "Say something, Lucas." He clenches his fists. "There's nothing to say." She exhales sharply, her hands trembling. "You don't mean that." But before he can respond, chaos erupts. Gunfire, screams. A shadow moves in the alley, a flash of metal. Lucas reacts before he thinks. Instinct, training, protection. In a single movement, he grabs her, pulling her against him as he shields her body with his own. His breath is in her hair, his heartbeat wild against her back. The threat is gone in seconds, neutralized, handled. But Lucas doesn't move, neither does she. Because in that moment, nothing else exists. No kingdom, no duty, no engagement ring, just him and her. His arms around her, his pulse against hers. And the truth neither of them can outrun. Because even if he can't have her, he will always protect her. The rooftop is quiet, high above the city where no one can reach them. Alessandra stands near the edge, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the endless lights below. Lucas shouldn't be here. He shouldn't have followed her. But when she slipped away from the chaos tonight, when she disappeared from the flashing cameras and the weight of her royal title, he knew exactly where to find her. She doesn't turn when she hears him step onto the rooftop. "I should hate you," she murmurs. His throat tightens. Then do it. Finally, she faces him, and she's crying. Lucas has faced gunfire, taken down criminals twice his size. But this wrecks him. I tried, Lucas. Her voice is breaking. I tried to move on, to let you go. But it's killing me. His chest aches, but he forces himself to stay still, to stay strong. You have a future, Alessandra. A kingdom, a duty. She shakes her head. What if I don't want any of it? Lucas exhales, stepping forward. Close enough to see the torment in her eyes. Close enough to feel the pull that has always existed between them. Tell me you don't love me, she whispers. Lucas swallows hard. His pulse is a storm, his control unraveling. She reaches for his hand, her fingers trembling. Tell me, and I'll walk away. The words are right there. The lie is waiting. But he can't do it. Not this time. Not when it's her. So he does the only thing he swore he wouldn't. He tells the truth. I love you more than anything, he admits, voice raw. And that's why I have to let you go. A broken sob escapes her lips, because she knows. This is goodbye. Lucas steps back, breaking the touch, breaking everything. She watches him, breathless, shattered, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Then, after a long, aching moment, she turns and walks away. And this time, he doesn't stop her. The royal engagement announcement is a spectacle. Cameras flash, reporters murmur, and the world watches as Princess Alessandra stands before them, poised and perfect, just as she's always been trained to be. Her fiancé, a man chosen for her, not by her, stands at her side, offering his arm like a polished accessory. Lucas watches from the crowd. Dressed in plain clothes, hidden among hundreds, he tells himself he shouldn't be here, that he should have let this go. But as soon as she steps onto that stage, as soon as he sees the way she hesitates before taking the microphone, he knows. She's not ready. She's not okay. And then, she does the impossible. She exhales, slow and measured, before stepping back. Not forward. Back. Away from the cameras, away from the man beside her, away from everything expected of her. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Her mother stiffens. Her father's expression turns to ice. The reporters murmur, stunned. And then, in the middle of it all, her eyes find his. Lucas goes completely still, because this isn't hesitation. This is a choice. And it's him. Before anyone can react, before duty can chain her back down, she moves. Through the crowd, past the cameras, past the gasping nobles and the stunned security. Straight to him. Lucas doesn't breathe as she stops in front of him, chest rising and falling with adrenaline, eyes shining with the kind of determination that could bring down empires. No more running, she says, breathless. The world is watching. The palace is watching. None of it matters. Lucas swallows hard, his pulse deafening in his ears. Are you sure? She reaches for his hand. Her choice, her future, her freedom. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. And this time, he doesn't push her away. Did you feel every moment of this forbidden love story? Would you have chosen love over duty? If you love this story, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more passionate, heart-stopping romances. Because sometimes, the most powerful love stories are the ones that break all the rules.